Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Super J Dudes podcast. Amy went away for a second. Whoops, bad timing. How's everyone doing? How did everyone enjoy that episode? That was a long episode, but god dang, a lot of shit happened in that episode. Holy shit! Hey, you guys don't really remember this what happened? Eh?
No, I remember a lot more after watching it back now, but I feel like I remember recording it because it does have that 2 segment thing where we have that mission at the end where I almost forget that we had that entire
full combat
section at the end. Yeah.
Any initial thoughts, Magnus, as someone who did not experience this and just catching up, filling in the blanks?
More. No, I music thought it was videos. That, this is the first. Yeah, I want more music videos right now. I know that was a lot of work, but honestly, that was my feedback when I heard it the first time. It really was a treat, is what I will say.
Yes.
But I think it was awesome to see an actual kind of inner turmoil, not just within a person, but within the group for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And actually them not getting along. I
feel like that's pretty standard in arcs of group journeys where at a certain point your relationships plateau, right? You end up just being you've developed relationships, you become close friends, whatever. We've gotten there to that point. And so much gnarly stuff is happening in the universe that's affecting all of you very differently that it's cool to change up the relationships a little bit and have some friction. I love inter-party friction, especially when it makes story sense. And I think with the path Mikey went on, with everything that happened with his family, with the path Bugaki's on, with everything that he had to deal with, and the whole the ship, the new Union ship blowing up, and the Mark thing really shakes things up in the Hot Potato Crew.
You really took that dagger and you just turned it into a Buster sword. You just started jamming it into
yeah. So that whole news report of the aftermath. Hello, Amy. Welcome back. The aftermath of that reporting of the ramifications of what you guys did and the interviews, the Curry Larson testimonial, everything was just there to just be ugh, you guys are shit's getting crazy.
It was fun though because I feel like that made me make it a mental choice. I was like, okay, I have to decide how am I gonna feel about the news as a character, and I was like, I feel like I should kind of play it not off necessarily, but not tell everyone what's going through my head. Mm-hmm. Just absorb it and then just let that sit in Mikey. Mm-hmm. And not even have conversations about it. Don't really bat down anyone who kind of feels differently.
It's a heavy news report, and I think it's because a lot of what you guys have heard via the news ends up being New Union propaganda or things framed in a lot of things from the New Union perspective. But this time, you actually did do something that was pretty fucked up, and with the sad music and everything, it hits pretty hard to realize all of that.
Yeah.
Because you're fuck, it's actually not propaganda this time. We actually did some.
That's I knew Mark.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. Yeah. We didn't have to blow that thing up. You know what I mean? We could have just went in there and did the same thing without blowing it up. But we're let's blow it up. For no reason.
And we know Amy loves that. Bugaki loves to blow shit up.
I like how Mikey was very he had you put this character on Mikey where it's subtly he's underneath the surface he's just really going through something but you can see how it's there. It's unexpressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel it's fun too because Bugaki is kind of again the opposite of what I was trying to portray in myself. So I feel it was cool. Even when you wanted to have more conversations and do more of the RP thing, I think it was fun just shutting it down as much as I could.
I want to listen. I want to kill my whole family.
And it's kind of cool because I feel it shows that I'm also hesitant to kind of do it. I think we wanted to do me and Alex talked a little bit off stream about like I didn't want to like go into too much of what we were gonna have conversations about, but I'm like, I think it'd be moving forward if we have something that we just kind of sell into it. Like I might come at you more like after the fact and things like that, just to kind of create this. But I feel like even in this episode, we do a little bit of that, but it's just like the little cracks of it are showing. Like there's still so much more that I feel like each character has to go through with their own insecurities.
I think mechanically also, this is where we start losing the bonded trait between you two.
It's slowly after the next level up, because I think I didn't change it for this mech, but then once I level up again, there's like a whole bunch of other things. Which is interesting
to have like a story mechanic kind of lead into their mech stuff. Yeah, that was a choice for sure. Part that I really found that was fun to do was the Zizlagek backstory when Bugaki wanted to see his dad, but instead Zizlagek comes into the room. I think after that, Zizlagek didn't really have much like backstory or anything before when you first met him. He's just a guy. I think that's how I introduced him. Like when Deeper was like, "Can I roll to see if I know who this is?" And I was like, "No, he's just a guy." But then after that first interaction with you and like implying that he had this deep dark backstory, I went and wrote this whole silly backstory of him being an orphan, him being raised around Dragonborn, but being a lizard, all this stuff that I was gonna throw at you at some point just to like have like an extra comedic thing, like riffing off of that last like emo scene. And it happened to be this one. It just happened to be this episode.
It's great.
So.
There's a funny racial undertones in this whole campaign, including season 1, where like other reptilian species are inferior to Dragonborn, and
or they're treated as inferior or feel inferior because of how
slimy they are.
I don't even know if it was like anything ever in like if there's any kind of lore about Dragonborns being like arrogant about things, but Belmont was a dick to a lizard.
He was.
Was it Gertie Jenkins?
Gertie Jenkins. Gertie Jenkins.
All in season 1. And it was just like a funny run-on joke that like the slimier they were, like it was like a derogatory, like it was a bad thing, like a racial, they used that as a thing you could insult a lizard with. Yeah. So I think it was kind of cool that Sizzlegek had like such a troubled like experience, but also was involved with Dragonborn.
Yeah. I think I wanted to play into that lore that we established, where like there might be some friction between those two. But you know, such as the universe.
It's so funny because it's like it's terrible at the same time, but like even for me, like playing the like arrogant Dragonborn who's like being racist to a lizard, it's just funny to like play on the tropes of like a lot of like the insecurities and stereotypes that like come through racist dialogue, like throughout a lot of what Belmont discovered with Gertie Jenkins was like I was just being very reactionary to literally like the physical presence of Gertie and how he carried himself.
Totally like
and then like once you get to know Gertie,
100%.
Yeah.
The Yoden stuff, I completely improvised because upon reaching Dudrin 2, Mike was like, "Oh yeah, like dude, Yoden, Whisk's nephew lives here," and I had that in my notes, but I completely forgot him as a character. And I did in my notes like plan to have him when you guys reach Dudrin 2, but like I guess when like writing out notes for this episode, I completely forgot. So everything that happened was like improvised. I was like, "Oh yeah, his shop shut down because of the new union and like blah blah blah."
It worked out.
Yeah, it worked out. And shout out to Defend for the cool art. The Yoden art.
That's
that was dope
for that. That's great. Yeah. Space Dwarf.
Yeah. Morgan Hallahan, on the other hand, nice to finally get to talk to him after seeing him only briefly in episode 2. Like he kind of got his vibe a little bit. But I think with like face to face with Bugaki, I feel like his like attitude is like he doesn't want to be involved in the war. He wants to like kind of be out of it. But I think Bugaki's actions and like Bugaki like doing all these bold things like on the news and like even like coming up and like trying to talk to Morgan Hallahan, I feel like he's a character that would like see that and like respect it in a way that like one, it's like hilarious, and two, like he likes shit disturbers, I feel. I feel like that's just like the vibe he gave me, like from that first episode. So when Bugaki was like fully like puffing up his chest and saying all this shit on his own ship, I think Morgan like was down with like that banter. And that's how he like. I feel like
funny
that's
because like you kind of you face checked him or whatever too, but then you were like, "I like your jibs," basically, and I was like, "Okay, I could have gone 2 different directions."
Yeah, I like how that was in his character where he was like, "You know what? Yeah, you should be giving me good for you. I respect that." You know, some characters that would go the other way, but I like how you know.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually what happens is like we usually end up having to like not backpedal Bugaki introducing himself to people, but we usually intervene a lot more.
The one time Bugaki introduces himself, says his real name, and it actually worked out.
And Andy was like holding back too. And he was like, "All right."
Yeah.
I forget what did Hallohan do in the meeting in that meeting with the
all he said was that he wanted to stay out of it, but also like if he believed in a god, if people were like putting shit on where like his god shits and eats, I think is what he said, he'd be pissed. Like he was just like he was neutral, but he was saying like, yeah, like if people were putting a temple and I was religious like on my thing, like I'd be upset too, is what he said. So we never really fully went on board, but he like, I guess there was kind of a hint of like him agreeing. So,
but he wants to stay. Yeah,
he wants to stay out because Dujin 2 and Gakyak are like self-sustaining.
But if push comes to shove,
who knows? Who knows?
He's
one guy on comms, maybe.
maybe. But yeah, so this episode, you guys got fucking ambushed. Ambushed by Bungit Macaroni on Dudrin 2. So the backstory of this, of like how I like justified it, was like Bungit coordinated those blink gate restrictions, like kind of cornering you guys and like restricting your movement, right? By like upping the security on those. And then when you guys destroy the New Union carrier and there's like a missing Mega Blink drive, he is obviously smart enough to realize that like you guys stole that in order to move around. I mean, he can only assume. And he knows the only place to like get that shit installed is Dudrin 2. So he goes there before you guys like kind of putting the math together. That's how I kind of like thought that he would think as a detective, right? So that's how I figured out where you were. And Vange Vagarodi being Bugagi's arch enemy. When I created that character, I think we just like thought of someone who'd be chasing Bugaki as like a cat and mouse type of like funny, silly thing, and we didn't really give him a backstory. Like when we first talked about it, Defran, and gave him the name and stuff, he was just someone that was like gonna hunt Bugaki down. But that scene where you're like, why'd you do it? Like no one cares about their job that much. I actually had no backstory for Bungit, but then like when you said that, like a million thoughts flashed in my head for like the 2 seconds that you saw me thinking. And I was like, oh yeah, like what would his motivation be to be so dedicated to hunting Bugaki down? And I think because we had that PlayStation 2 scene earlier, it was just in my head, and I was like, oh, like Bungit's like family, if like they all died on PlayStation 2 via like Bugaki's father, that's like such a reason for him to like be so passionate about like finding Bugaki and tracking him down. And I like made that up in that moment. Yeah,
I was wondering. I was going to ask you if you made that up, because that was like a really good. That was really good.
Oh, that push.
It gives him more depth, right? He's just a silly French guy.
It's the perfect reason.
Like Bugaki started pulling back.
Yeah.
Because then it was like, oh shit, you're right. Like, because he was right in that moment.
Yeah.
Well, it also, because I think thematically earlier in the episode we are talking about like you got like the ramifications of like the war stuff, right? And you guys like blowing shit up and like how that affects like civilians and stuff. I think that was all in my brain in that moment. So then like the perfect backstory for Bungit in that moment, like thematically, was for him to have lost something due to a large scale attack or something, it just works because it reflects exactly what you guys are so distraught about at the beginning. So like, you guys immediately connect to that, right? And I was like, damn, my brain worked.
I think
my brain worked good.
That's a great comment on war itself too, right? Like you're fighting back against someone because they did something to you, but like you already did, your family or whatever did something to them generations ago, and the war keeps going.
This campaign, there's been so many like moments where I don't know how you guys come up with the stuff on the spot. Even like the stuff I say sometimes, it's like in the moment, like
just like
everything just comes together. Everything comes together with all the backstory, and it like creates this like perfect zone for improv. You know what I mean?
It's because
the beauty of tabletop RPG.
Well, because we have such a huge fleshed out like universe to play in, and we're not going to be able to touch like 90% of the stuff that we came up with, but like we can pull from that in the moments like that.
I've been thinking about this actually quite a bit recently, and I don't know if there's ever going to be a game that I DM in the future where I don't integrally involve the players.
Yes.
Like and I feel such a difference when talking with Chris to even set up Dot. And like, it's so much easier to role play when you have an established piece of the universe. When you have created these memories, when like the DM and you are also trying to build this thing and on the same wavelength. And then it just, improv is so much easier when you're pulling from this very ripe tree of history.
Everyone understands their characters so well, and I think we all understand the universe like pretty well enough, even though a lot of it isn't like necessarily that fleshed out. That makes like RP so easy because like it's just like all the knowledge that's in our brain.
That's definitely the one thing I'll say compared between the seasons. Like the first season, I definitely played it a lot more like Wonder Wild. Like I didn't really know what role to fill, so I was just trying to do the best I could with what was happening with my storyline. Because it was such an open idea for me. I was like, I'm into this blood story, death story. I'll go that route.
Your first,
but like with this, and then this one, it's so much more like sectioned up. Like we've got like rebellious forces, we've got the Condrian forces, we've got this new unionism stuff. But then you have this whole galaxy of people that range from species to species. And like I'm playing a Newman. Like it's so easy to play that specific species knowing that they have like influenced certain amounts. Like there's like a guilt that I can carry. Like even just being a human character, like being human in real life, like it's very easy to be like,
it's the equivalent of like
I'm just the same. I'm a dude in space.
But yeah, Magnus, what you're saying, has your experience with like playing, and I guess like everyone just like have you not experienced that before? Like as a GM, did you not do that with your games before? And like as a player in other games, did you not really have that much like conversation about stuff like that?
I have with my players quite a bit, and there's some players who take to it, and then there's some that didn't really take to it. Yeah, they're just like, there's like some are really great at improvising in the moment. Like they know what they're going for. And so they can bring out what they're going for in every moment. But when it comes to like, I have made this character or this history or this thing that is integral to you, and you just kind of walked away from it or forgot about it during everything else. It is still a balance of like, it's not guaranteed that all of your players are going to give that, receive it and give it at the same time. So what I found is, it's like there are players who are receptive, and I feel bad because it feels like I'm focusing more on them, but they are focusing more on like the story holistically rather than like, I just know who my character is and it doesn't matter what their backstory is, and I'm just going to like improv everything without necessarily a fundamental connection. My brother is very much this way. He's so good at improv of going to what he wants to do, but not necessarily thinking about the historical or situation connection or context.
It's definitely interesting getting into it more. I feel like, especially I guess from a newer perspective, like I'm paying more attention to stuff like that now, but it's obviously just, I feel like I've been baked in it so consistently and we've been doing it like, how long now?
I feel what helps,
a handful of years.
What helps is when you knowing getting used to the people you play with. I think that's what your strong points are with your improv, is because you're comfortable with each other and you guys know each other for so long that it's easier to bounce off someone when you know that person's personality and the way they think.
Yeah.
Like,
a good cast is key.
Then when you have a new person that jumps in, and some like Magnus said, sometimes they'll give it to you like the bounce off of, or they're less experienced about it or whatever. Lucky to me, my entire life I just improv.
Well, even with like conversations with you, which we will see Amy's character actually next episode, which is exciting. Like
such a good energy to balance out all of our stupidity.
I found that like GMing, like even with like our Medenya campaign on the Pink City channel, like the year-long charity stream, like the players, everyone gets more out of like the story and the character if like they put more in. Like if there's a player who's like, yeah, like my backstory is like whatever, like I don't really care, or like if someone sends you like pages and pages of lore, which I know Amy sent me like there was a day I got like 1 million voice memos that were like
it's easier than typing.
I know, no, but like that's the good shit as a GM that I want, because like I can get more out of it and I can create more out of it, and you get more out of it because you understand your character more. I've always found that to be like really important with GMing, and I'll say like D-Fran and Mike know, like shout out to Damien, who's my first GM ever, who I kind of take that from, who like when we first did our very first session zeros, like back in the day, like he would like, if you had an idea for a character, he would ask us to like create NPCs that would know the character before we even talk about the character themselves, like just like plant them so deeply in the universe that you build, so that like it's not just like a character slapped in like some random universe that could be in any other story. It's like this person is ingrained in it. They have like stakes, like Mikey's got the whole Condria backstory, Bugaki's got the whole Bizento stuff, Whiskers has the whole like Jin Commander former like Whiskers familiar stuff, Dot has like the experiment stuff. Like all of this stuff is so ingrained in like what's happening in the world that it informs your characters so much, and I think that's so important. Like as a GM,
and it plays into that whole thing where it's like you can't really, like as we said, we're not going to be able to experience all of the galaxy this time around. But if we have people who have experiences in the story around the galaxy, different parts of it, you can like sample that and bring that. It's like we haven't really spent time in Bizento, but we know so much about it because Bugaki is such a rich source of that.
But also it's good that we have such a DM that allows us to have so much freedom, because you could have an experience with like a very like strict DM, so like you kind of feel very like stunted, and you can't, so you're not sure where you can go. But we're so wild and all over the place when we want to because of that freedom.
I think it works. Definitely a rule of cool GM. Like I don't think there's anything that any of you guys has presented to me where I straight up was like, no. I was like, I always think like, how can I incorporate this into what's happening, even if it's like weird as fun.
If there's anything that I'm like, okay, I don't want it to like really discourse the episode, I'll usually text it to Chris. I'm like, here's an idea. I don't want to like.
I do it all the time. I'll do it in the middle of us playing. Like, is this allowed? I'll be like, if I do
recording time, then you'll have to edit me out.
So I'll be like, if I do it impulsively, and then he's like, all right, hold up, like it's gonna be so much editing. So I'll like just sneakily text someone on the side, like, what if I?
Yeah, no, it's good.
It's easy. Yeah.
I have a GM that loves secrets. If you want to text
oh my god, I've been doing it. I do it
during the thing where no one else knows. Like I love that shit.
My character is literally just full of it.
Amy's character's full of secrets. We'll see. We'll see next episode. But just a funny like thing for like the combat like toward the end of the episode. I know we had faced the snipers in like the Rage Against the Rift stuff, so the world has seen us face snipers, but this was recorded before that. This was the first time you guys actually faced those sniper NPCs.
Ridiculous.
And they are so great. They're so cool. Nasty, one structure, like
right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Because it was prepared, right? They were already waiting for us, so we didn't have a chance to react to it.
And you guys didn't know, right? So like,
and you could play. That was the whole tone of the battle, though, because then Bugaki was gone for an entire turn, and it's like it was his battle, like that was such a, and it almost like it worked out really well with the storytelling that Bugaki was having such a hard time. I don't know how the dice does that, but like every time we need,
where is his Grammy?
Character.
Well, both of you guys, they just both of you guys. It makes the shift.
We've had issues.
Bugaki nominated for a Grammy coming soon.
Yeah.
By the way, for that song, the music video, shout out to like D-Friend and Brendan. I'm assuming Brendan did like the music and stuff. Brendan is D-Friend's cousin who's done a lot of the music. He did the intro music for the show. He's in the band Structures and a bunch of notable music stuff. Shout out to them because like I didn't know if it was gonna happen. I was like to D-Friend, like it'd be jokes if we could get this as a little song. And like timing and stuff, D-Friend's been busy, but like I'm so glad that you were able to do that because the music video is just
Chris,
like
make sure you make that a reel. Make it a reel.
It's going up. It's going up. It's going up.
I need it. That the way you animated it and added the guitar and everything.
The background footage of the explosions is so well timed.
It was a lot of. It took a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun to make. Just like, hey, this is why we're the highest production Nerds shows because we do weird shit like this. But I'm so glad that we were able to do that.
It was like we had a great time.
Yeah,
I gotta make it to your next studio session.
Yeah, if you're in the studio and you want to record anything for the show, like please do because that shit rocks.
Oh, Super Journey to record like an LP,
just an off rip.
Actually, we should upload it as like an actual song to Spotify as well.
We should do Super Journey do Christmas. Like Spider-Man did it.
Sunny to share. I've got You Babe by Bugaki and Mikey.
Around Christmas time, we do want to do a Rage Against the Rift that's like Riftmas. Like a Riftmas special.
Yes.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Let's rob Santa Claus.
Yeah.
The mission's like a heist. It's a heist.
Act unseen, unheard.
We robbed the North Pole.
It's somebody out.
Friend, there's something about your voice that is just catchy and fun. But don't let that go to your head.
He's gonna come out with an album.
It's so good.
I'm immediately self-conscious.
No, literally, I remember I used to live in Alex's basement, and he used to always just rip off. Like we would hang out in his house. I would never be in the basement. I'd go up to his unit. We would play chess, smoke the green, and he would literally just whip his guitar out, no amp, and just start being like, play the song and just like make up words and shit on the spot.
D-Man's a musician, everybody. You know, he's a drummer.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So good. Always doing it like, man, this is so good.
D-Friend, for everyone who doesn't know, is the Michelangelo of our time. He's a musician, he's an artist, he's a tattoo artist, he's a comic book writer, he's a voice actor, all these things.
Yeah.
Renaissance art on the floor.
Every art.
Tie-dye individual.
Yeah.
He doesn't use chairs.
No chairs. Yeah.
Doesn't use chairs?
No chairs.
I'm pretty sure he's on the ground right now.
Yeah.
I don't have a proper computer setup, so I am on
laptop.
The computer is miles away from him currently, but he's here.
I don't even think you have a proper table. Too. Your table has wheels on it.
Your table has wheels on it.
That's true.
His table just in case it needs to move, but he'll never move.
Like real wheels. They're like
just in case it needs to move. They're like wheels that you would see on a Flintstone vehicle.
Yeah.
He's just like this. This is him right now underneath the table.
Still living in prehistoric times.
One final like fun thing, or not fun, but like just a final, just like a tidbit thing. Mikey's mech. It's the first time we see his new mech in action. I will say for those out there who are judging us by the rules, we do get his core system wrong. The mines do not activate on all movement. It's just involuntary movement and extra movement beyond their standard movement. We did it for everyone. We'll just say that was a beginner's luck. His first time launching them.
Mikey leveled up mentally and somehow willed them to explode.
Yeah. A fun Easter egg though is I don't know if you guys noticed the new animation and the new sound of his new sniper rifle. that sound is built up of like a bunch of different like Gundam sounds, but the main sound that you're hearing is actually a pitched down version of Mikey's own pistol, which I thought would be really cool and thematic because it was like a Conjurer weapon that you guys took from the Conjurer facility.
Cool.
That's the sound. Love the new design.
Alex did the greatest job meshing the original design with like small updates from like other mechs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a little tidbit. Any final thoughts? Any final words?
If I can say one thing I said something about DMing and including backstory. Thanks to this, my experience with you, Chris, and the Super Journey dudes, it was my first time as a player having that experience.
Oh, really?
And I think that all players need something like that. And my DMing, I think, will even be heavily influenced and accentuated by this experience because my first time with D&D and most of its sense is just like, oh, I can just throw myself in a world and have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
But the meaning was just the sheer joy and improv and like there wasn't necessarily meaning to the story. And so I was just like, oh, if I just throw people in a setting or environment or a scenario, they'll figure out their own meaning like I did naturally, duh. But that's like not really how it works for everybody.
I mean, it can work,
realize it. 100% it can.
Yeah, it can work very well, yeah.
But as a DM, the less assumptions you make based off of how players are going to react, the better. I guess the more you can prepare for the different kinds of players that you're working with.
People could be just really shy too, like just shy players all together.
Well, because
they don't know what they can ask or if they should ask.
I think I do a lot of this prep because I have a lot to make up for, because I'm not trained in improv, because I'm new to GMing. And I even mentioned this during Breakout Con. I had a panel about GMing podcasts and GMing stuff. The three other people who were on the panel were like, oh yeah, like we don't really prep that much. I was the only one on that panel that was like, I prep so much because I need to be prepared for like when things happen. Like I'm not as practiced in improv. I'm not as good as improv as like actual improv people. Like I'm not trained in that stuff. So like in order to like make up for that, I just need to have a lot of stuff prepped in my head so that like when things happen that I don't expect, I'm at least somewhat prepped.
You just pull from it. Smart.
Yeah. So I am a GM that needs a lot of prep.
Also, I feel like Alex has good comments on that, even from like season 1 too, because you had prep, but I feel like also you learned that you wanted to prep more because we were doing things that you didn't even think we were gonna actively push for.
That's what I was gonna say. I gotta give Chris Chris deserves a lot of recognition for what he's put into this season, because it's like he put a lot into it, and it's like the thing that I admire the most about it is the arcs and how the arcs are concise and they build up to like something else. Like there's like mini arcs and then there's like larger arcs, which I think you can tell it's like one cohesive thing that builds to something. And this is like the first campaign that I've done I was really thinking of arcs like that,
like you find out so relatively new to D&D and stuff.
Yeah, thinking of like character arcs and thinking of like the arc of the story and the arc, how the character arcs relate to the arc of the story. And I'm also doing screenwriting. I'm in school for screenwriting now, so learning all that.
Now you get it, right?
Perfect, like learning it at this moment. I was like, I'll just implement that stuff into my character too.
I was just gonna say, it's funny you bring up that you're studying screenwriting, because I was just gonna say, like, you can thank all of that like to like my film degree. Like I have like such a strong,
that's just everything you studied.
I have a strong story sense, and like I'm like a film, like writing and directing in film is like my strong suit in that regard.
It very much is.
Yeah, so like that scope, the scope of like, and the general like idea and the overarching like understanding of what the show is and where it can go and stuff. I would say like it. That's definitely my strong suit. I have a strong story sense,
because I feel like the amount of like adversaries we've ran into, each one has like unique flesh. It feels like a new challenge. It doesn't feel like we're running into another group of bandits or like you're the Space Marauders. It's like literally everybody has so much weight and different values.
Just wait until everyone sees episode 24.
That we just recorded.
It's the perfect culmination of like all of our backstories and like everything that our characters are about, and it just like came together so well.
It just came together beautifully.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. You have to find a way to edit out me like being like it's like way too many parts.
It's sick. Yeah. It's not gonna be for like probably a couple months, but it's definitely one of my favorite sessions that I've also ever played. Like definitely one of the most insane comments I've ever run. But yeah, quite an episode. And yeah, to pull all that together, honestly, wasn't hard because you guys are on such fleshed out journeys that like it was just easy to weave them together because it's like they're not so different, right? And like that you're all kind of on the same. Like on the same path with different like mini paths, but the mini paths are easy to like kind of lock together because everything's so intertwined in this universe, right? It was just I obviously added like the flair from the New Union side, but it's a testament to all of
especially comparing it all to season 1.
All of our abilities
that we've grown a lot
to build this story together is what contributed to like what that episode 24 became. Amazing episode. I hope now there's high expectations to like finale this series even better than that, which is I don't know high bar.
You got Amy's second appearance coming in too.
Yes, I gotta talk to you, Amy, soon because we have
coming back.
Yeah, well, because we talked about like.
Is it a time skip episode? Like it has time
really. Like, I think a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, really great time. Things are only ramping up, I believe. Yeah, so next couple episodes, we have Amy. I don't know when the next episode will air. I still have to edit it, and we have Fan Expo this weekend, so this week's kind of a write off. But stay tuned to our socials. We will get the new episode out as soon as we can. Probably sometime mid-December or mid-September. December would be crazy. Mid-September, I would imagine.
For Christmas.
And then hopefully we can get back into the swing of things. But yeah, a lot is happening. I have not been able to edit as much, but stay tuned. Because Amy's episode is also a beast of an episode. Quite the beast of an episode. All right, that's it for us. I gotta go to work tomorrow. So we will see you on the other side.
Bye.
And see you in Dreamland.
Over and out.
Over and out.
Peace.